create peace within your heart and be peace, because I think it's really hard to make decisions under stress and under a cluttered mind. It's hard to make clear decisions under a cluttered mind. And so I want to create peace. I do that through working out, through meditation, through silence, and listening. And from that place, I think about, okay, I really am led by my schedule as well. Like my schedule dictates the balance. If it's not scheduled, then I can get off track. So I put in time, throughout the week of when I do my interviews. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I batch all my content, my interviews. Monday and Friday is for team. It's where I spend my time on team calls, team meetings. Monday and Friday, check-ins, setting the goals and reflecting on the week. And then I schedule in on my calendar when I work out every day. I schedule it in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bobbbaaaay. Each week with our guest episodes, I try to put the spotlight on someone who, in my eyes, has given themselves permission to live a life authentic to them. Our guest today is from Delaware, Ohio. He's the host of Top 100 Global Podcast, The School of Greatness. He's a New York Times bestselling author of The School of Greatness and The Mask of Masculinity. He's a former professional football player, two-sport All-American, currently a USA men's national handball athlete. He's been featured on Ellen, Good Morning America, The Today Show, People, Men's Health, and many, many other major media outlets. There is no question about it. I would not be where I am today without this man. I have waited 5 years to say these words right now. Today on the podcast, Lewis Howes.
My man. Excited to be here, man. Excited. I've been watching your journey for 5 years. It's been fun to see your growth, your ascension, the challenges you've overcome, who you've stepped into as a human being. So I'm glad the synchronicities of the universe brought us together in Marina Del Rey on a run, and we made it happen, man.
My heart is beating right now. I still couldn't believe I'm running and I see you. And I tried to I called my mom the other night. She's like, what did you say to him? And I said, honestly, I couldn't even speak for the first 2 minutes. I couldn't believe it was actually happening. Last night I was scrolling through our DMs, and I want to just take a moment to say how much I've appreciated that over the years, you've taken the time to even give me some feedback and some pointers of advice of back when I was driving the Uber days and I was like trying to find a way out of that. Like you took the time to really give me some advice, and there've been a lot of mini conversations over the last couple of years. So thank you so much for even just in those moments, like giving me this little light that I was like, I have the guy that inspired me to start a podcast. He's communicating with me. There was one point I had one of our DMs printed and in my bedroom as just a daily reminder, like just keep going. It was like you had given me some words of encouragement. I was like, if I'm getting the word directly from the source of how I got into this, like it is just a matter of time. So seriously, thank you so much.
Of course, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful.
You mentioned sacrifices, and that's hurdles and challenges. You have been through a ton throughout your life. When I think back, we're talking, injuries that stopped your football career, broke sleeping on your sister's couch, your father being in a severe car accident, the one that really I appreciated so much, and you opening up and being vulnerable about being sexually assaulted and abused when you were 5 years young. These are massive challenges, but how have you learned to just lean into these challenges and try to make the best of some of these situations instead of running away from them and trying to hide from them?
Well, I think when I have learned to listen to the inner voice, I've learned to listen, and usually it's the loudest screaming at me when everything's falling apart in my life, when something's not right, when my health is off, when there's a relationship that's off, when there's something in my business, maybe something on my team, there's something off. When there's something feels off, that's when I know I got to listen and I got to be quiet. That's like my inner voice screaming at me saying something's not working. And essentially you're not working correctly. You're not in alignment with your highest self. You're not in alignment with your authentic power. You're not in alignment with love and with your values and your mission. And through 8 years of therapeutic experiences, workshops, therapies of all types, along with just doing a podcast for 8, almost 9 years now, and essentially being in like a therapy session every time I'm doing one.
Yes.
It's been almost 9 years of therapeutic exercises and experiences that have given me incredible reflection and humility to realize when everything is falling apart and the common denominator is me. I'm at the center, I'm at the source of things that aren't working, or the things that are in breakdown, or things that aren't in alignment. Again, whether that be my health, my relationships, business, whatever. And so when I am able to listen and I'm able to reflect on, when things aren't working correctly, that's when I find the solutions. That's when I'm able to listen to myself. That's when I'm able to listen to others and actually take feedback and then start implementing something differently. But at the core of all of this is learning how to heal. And I think a lot of people don't learn the art of healing. And I think it's truly an art. They don't teach us how to heal in school. This was not a subject in class. Really, I don't know many parents out there in the world that taught their kids, like, okay, when you feel upset or hurt or sad, or you go through a breakup, here's how to heal.
Yeah.
We've kind of, in general, just been taught how to get bigger, faster, stronger, to sweep it under the rug, to not show people we're afraid or sad or scared or emotional. We've kind of been taught to suck it up in general. Not everyone, but that's kind of been the general consensus. And all of that sucking it up leads to masking, leads to trying to project something, leads to trying to accumulate something, whether it's wealth or followers or shoes or watches or whatever it is. And I'm not saying accumulating things is a bad thing, but when it's coming from a place of needing to feel loved, then you just got to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Am I doing it because I love it and I enjoy it? Or am I doing it because I feel like I'm not enough and I need more? And that healing journey for me over the last really 8.5, 9 years has been extremely powerful. And the most powerful has come at the beginning of this year. And I've done a year of consistent therapy almost every week for the entire year. And I should write a book about my year of therapy, because I've done 3 or 4 months at a time here and there in the last 8 years when I was in relationships, and I would do kind of couples therapy.
Yeah.
And I'd do a little bit one-on-one. But once, we ended the couples therapy, it's kind of like, okay, I'm good. I'm back to myself. I'm back to being single or whatever. And this year I was in couples therapy in a previous relationship. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to continue this once we were complete in the relationship and finished it. I was like, I want to do this for myself for the rest of the year, and have a coach of my emotions, because I never had that. I had a coach of my mindset. I had a coach of my goals, my business, my health and wellness. I had a coach for speaking, for salsa dancing, like skills, Spanish coach. I had all these other coaches for these things that I wanted to master, but I never had a coach for my emotions and my heart. And I think that's been the key to overcoming obstacles and challenges, is learning how to heal my heart and learning how to love myself, unconditionally, and accept myself, as opposed to beat myself up and say mean things to myself. And it's been an incredibly peaceful transformation of being in accountability to my emotions and learning how to regulate them so that my mind doesn't control my emotions doesn't control my mind. So I'm able to have peace throughout the day and just keep repeating that. So that's been the process for me, is learning how to heal. And I think most people, we don't learn that.
No, I'm going to be able to clip when this book does come out, and he said it first on It's the Bearded Man podcast. They was writing a book, but the emotions is something that I have found that there's certain things that I do that allow me to control those emotions, whether it's running, it's meditating, it's journaling, it's talking to friends. I find therapy. I do once a week, a solo podcast where people ask, how do you pick a solo topic? And I go, well, it's whatever's on my mind right now. It's been dating. It's been, past hurdles in my life. It's been productivity tips. It's been for me, it's about finding ways to express these emotions through mediums, which then feels like all the weight's taken off your shoulders. So through therapy, what have there been certain mediums and ways that you found, especially you're publicly talking and have a platform to talk about these things that are so relevant at certain times during these conversations, but are there certain ways that you have found to express these emotions and whatever you're going through?
Well, through therapy, I've done a lot of crazy therapeutic experiences. And I've talked about this many times, but I've done these different workshops where you're screaming, you're crying, you're doing, emotional work in small groups. You're getting extremely vulnerable. You're doing all these different things in workshop settings. In one-on-one therapy, I've done similar things, but it's really emotional and mental exercises. It's going back into the past and rewriting the story of those pains that still hold me back, that are still hurting me today.
Yes.
Why am I allowing the memories of a past to consume me today? Why is an event that occurred that's now just a memory, something I'm allowing to hurt me, a memory, as opposed to healing the memory of the past and starting to live into your highest, most authentic self today, and writing a visualization script of the future of what you're going to walk into. I'm pretty sure, Bobby, that 5 years ago, you were writing a script of one day creating this moment, and many of the moments that you've created on your podcast and in your life. You were like, I'm writing a script that I'm no longer going to be an Uber driver. I'm writing a script that one day I'm going to be working for a company that I'm inspired by, with a team that I'm inspired by, doing work that I enjoy. One day I'm going to be interviewing people, not just in my bedroom anymore, when flipping the bed over or whatever. You were writing a narrative and a script of the future that is now coming true. So why do we need to hold on to the memory of a past pain when it's no longer true anymore? It happened in the past. It's not happening now. And so that has been a powerful thing. And I think a lot of us, myself included, do things in the present based on past pain.
Yeah, it's like you have to rewrite the narrative of what you're telling yourself that happened in the past. And two words that you said before we jumped to this podcast that I have written down that I remind myself daily: let go.
Yes.
Let go of all these let go of the past narrative of whatever I'm creating in my mind of how I feel doing X, Y, and Z, and let go of things that I expect and want in my life. And I expect by next week I'll have this done. Well, I can only control the effort. I can't control the results. That was something I saw Ryan Holiday tweet a couple weeks ago, and I was like,
yeah,
that's the framework. You control the effort. You don't necessarily control the results. So let go of any expectations, but also letting go of kind of just some of the past. When I look at you, today, it's like you wear all these hats. You're the speaker, you're an author, you're a podcaster, you're a coach, you're a CEO, and I'm sure there's many more other things in the pipeline that I'll have to add 6 more things the next time we podcast in the future. But I'm super curious, how have you navigated just adding these new layers of your business without, there is no blueprint, there is no right or wrong way to do it. How have you navigated trying to figure that out along the way? Because obviously you're at a place now where you have the team, and I'm sure there's bigger and better where you want to go. But at one point you were just starting this podcast with not an author. You had some speaking experience, but you had some business startup experience, but it's evolved into just something so massive today.
I think I allow my imagination to dream, and I allow it to dream to be willing to try things that I think maybe others wouldn't do. And I think about what are the things that are exciting to me? What are the things that my imagination and my dreams get joyful around, that like fire me up? And what are the things that most people aren't willing to do? Those are like for whatever reason, that's like a challenge for me. It's exciting. It's like, okay, most of the people in my industry wouldn't be doing these things. 6 years ago, when I was, I guess 9 years ago, I launched the podcast in January. So we're a month away from my 9-year anniversary. And,
let's go.
And no one was doing podcasting at the time. I had 2 friends, Pat Flynn and Derek Halpern, who were podcasting, and they were maybe like 6 months in or maybe a year in or something. And they were very early. And I called them and I said, what is this podcasting thing? Like, no one's really doing this, but you guys are doing this. Is it fun? Is it worth your time? You think you'll make any money in the future? And both of them said it's like the most fun thing they're doing. And the audience that is listening, it was small at the time, is the most engaged, like, members of their community. And I was just like, I think I could do this. And this is something that I've been wanting to do I'd been interviewing people for years, since
through LinkedIn, correct?
Yeah, since 2007, 8, 9, 10. I was just interviewing people in person, I had a flip camera back in the day, and I would just turn it around and interview people. And I have some of these old videos on YouTube from like 2008, 9, 10, where it was just like little 15, 20-minute interviews. But I was also just sitting down and interviewing people without recording them for years. And I remember just saying to myself, like, gosh, if people heard what I was hearing from these people, and if they had access to these individuals like the way that I'm getting access, it could help so many people. The way I attribute a lot of my success in those early years to building my kind of online marketing business to the people I was meeting, the wisdom they were sharing with me. And then it's one thing to get the knowledge, but I was just taking extreme action. I was just like, I would learn one thing and I was just a maniac. I mean, I would not sleep. I would just work all day to try to figure this thing out that I was learning. So I took extreme action, but I had access to the wisdom and the knowledge. And I thought to myself, if I could do this for others, if I could continue to learn from the greatest minds and then share that with others, then, I feel like that'd be a good, purposeful mission to have. So what had happened is, as I started to get into this space, I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, there's really no one podcasting. A couple of friends were doing it like on the side, but it wasn't an industry back in 2012 when I was thinking about it, and started in 2013. And then I remember after 2 years, it was either 2 or 3 years in, I was like, gosh, I feel like the future is video for some reason. Like, no, at this point, no one had a video podcast. No one,
all audio.
No one was recording their podcast. Like, audio was still small. Like in 2015, I don't even think Serial had come out yet. Maybe that was 2016 or something. Or
2015, 2016, because that's the first podcast I had ever heard of back in the day.
So it was kind of like, oh, now there's this thing called Serial that celebrities were talking about in mainstream. And so like people were starting to listen to that show and then discovering other podcasts. And then it was still like a couple more years until like Wondery started putting out more shows and kind of like getting bigger or whatever. So, and then it wasn't until like the last 2 years where every celebrity and their dog had a podcast, right? But 5-6 years ago, no one, except for, I guess, Joe Rogan was maybe the only one. No one was doing video, right? No one was doing video. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I feel like I should just be investing in this. And there wasn't really a way to monetize video at the time. I was just like, I feel like I should just hire someone, invest in a video equipment and a video person, editor, whatever it is, and just start putting them out there on YouTube for the heck of it. And we're not going to monetize it. We're not going to make any money. I just want to put it out there to keep helping people. And this was maybe, I don't know, a year or two after like Gary Vee and D-Rock came together and he started doing more like just video content in general, like sharing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So it was still kind of new to like do video consistently. And I was just like, I don't know how, but I think the investment will pay off someday. And so we invested in a team to shoot video. And we, for 5 years, made $0 on video. But we put up something like, I don't know, 600 or 700 videos. And we didn't optimize them. We didn't have good looking thumbnails. We just put them up on YouTube. And it was maybe growing like, I don't know, 10,000 subscribers a month. And I remember I kept hearing a friend of mine, Evan Carmichael, say, dude, you got to get into YouTube. This was for years. And I was like, audio is where it's at. And this is this. And I'm building my programs and my courses and doing my events and books. And I was kind of like, I'm just doing the video to help people. Like, whatever, can you really make money? And I eventually said, okay, in the year of, when was this? 2020. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. It was the beginning of last year. So it was January 2020 that I was like, let me just turn on the ads and see if I can make any money. And I turned on ads on YouTube. So for the whole time before then, I didn't have ads turned on. It was just free.
You could have been monetizing this after 1,000 subscribers.
Oh man, I could have monetized it for years, man. And so I turned it on, and in the first month, I think it brought in like $25,000 in the first month for doing nothing. And I thought to myself, at the time, we had a pretty big, multiple 7-figure business, so it wasn't like,
it's not moving the needle.
It wasn't exciting, but I was like, okay, that can pay for some people, that can pay for some rent, like that's something. It's not crazy, but it's not nothing. I was like, okay. Yeah. And then I went back and looked at the views that I had on my channel and about threw up in my mouth thinking about how much money I could have made. in the previous 5 to 7 years of having video. And I was like, wow, it was over $1 million that would have made had I just turned up one button on that said, please monetize videos, and doing nothing else, just tapping one click of a button. But what had happened was now I saw a potential and I go, oh, I have a back catalog of whatever, 600 or 700 videos. Let's go start optimizing all the thumbnails and titles. And so that in 2020, I think we did something like, I don't know, $650,000 in revenue and just YouTube. And I was like, okay, it's not nothing, you know? And now it's a multi-million-dollar revenue stream with just clicking a button. And so for me, it's cool to, I like to look back and say, man, I'm glad I made that investment for 5 years where I didn't know how I was going to make a return. Like I just knew I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve people. I wanted to add value. I wasn't trying to make money. Yeah, I want to make money, but I wasn't like doing it to try to make money. I was just doing it to add value. And so either I'm extremely ignorant or stupid, and it just takes me longer times to figure things out. But I had a vision that I knew one day it would make sense. And I think that's what I've always done. You know, I did a documentary a couple of years ago, and no one was really doing documentaries in my space. You know, I wrote a book when I was 20, before I turned 25. And I self-published a book back in 2009 when you couldn't self-publish. Like there wasn't this easy way to just print on demand on Amazon at the time. I had to literally call publishers and ask them, and printing presses that work with the publishers and say, can you print my book? And can you get it on Amazon for me? And I had to get like a barcode for the back of my book. You had to do all these like logistics and steps and phone calls to just figure out how to do it. Now it's like you can Google how to publish a book and you can do it in 5 minutes.
Literally hit a button. Hit a button on Amazon.
It's done. I literally had a coaching student that had been wanting to publish a book for like 15 years, kept making this excuse over and over again of why they couldn't do it. And I said, I dare you to publish a book tonight in the next few hours before midnight. And this was like 5 o'clock. I go, I dare you. And to call it Shannon's Book of Quote. She wanted to do this whole book of quotes. And I go, just do one quote and publish the book and try to get one sale. And by midnight, she wrote a book called Shannon's Book of Quote. I said, do it one page, one book, one quote. And she sold a bunch of copies. And now she's working on like actually doing the bigger book, but now she's got the confidence. I think, you know, for me, it's been about putting things out there before they're ready. And so I've always wanted to be kind of ahead of what other people are thinking. I wrote a book called The Mask of Masculinity. I think it was way ahead of its time, you know, and it came out. It actually came out Halloween 4 years ago. And this was the height of right when Me Too came out. I didn't know Me Too was coming. I started working on this book 2 years before Me Too because of a process of like, my agent after the School of Greatness was a, you know, New York Times bestseller. He was like, let's go do the next book. And I think you should do like a business marketing book. And I was like, I can do that anytime. But I feel like if I die tomorrow and I don't put a book out about how men can heal their hearts and open up and be more vulnerable and end the suffering inside of their souls, then I'm doing a disservice to myself and my creator in the world. And so I know this isn't going to make a lot of money. I know it's not going to be this like massive hit, but I think 5-10 years down the line, it could have this long tail effect that really serves a lot of men and helps heal hearts. And I've just been kind of, you know, strategic in that sense where I've always wanted to do things a little bit differently than everyone else in my space.
Yeah. And you're way too purpose driven to write the marketing book where you feel like this is not, there's a bigger picture to why you do what you do, whether it's podcasting, hosting events, speaking, like there needs to be that purpose behind it.
Yeah. And I'll probably do a business marketing book in the future sometime, but not right now. And so it's not my intention right now.
Yeah. Speaking more on the podcast, because it's clearly it's the cement building block that then I think has allowed you to step into all these other things that you're involved in. But especially when I first came across it in fall of 2015, I mean, heavy hitters were on there that I was coming across: Gary Vee, Scooter Braun. Fast forward, there's been Tony Robbins. I just rewatched the Kobe Bryant video last night. So unbelievable.
Inspiring. Yeah, I love that interview.
Great interview. Brene Brown, Rob Dyrdek, Jay Shetty. I mean, literally the highest level people in these individual spaces. Is there a common theme that you see in all of these people?
I mean, they all have a belief in themselves. And I was seeing this quote earlier today. Actually, I took a screenshot on my phone that said, it said, this from, I don't even know who this is. This guy named Jim Valvano. I don't know if that's a former football player or what, but his quote says, "My father gave me the greatest gift anyone could give another person. He believed in me." And I think self-doubt is the killer of all dreams of human beings. When we doubt ourselves, we don't take action on our dreams. We sit, we ruminate, we wait, we analyze, we stress, we think about, we don't act. The skill set of learning how to believe in yourself is one of the greatest skills I think all can learn, with maybe being a tie with learning how to heal yourself, learning how to believe in yourself and learning how to heal yourself. If I could go back and learn those two things as a younger kid, I would be much further along in my emotional journey and my, let's call it, physical success as well. Like I would have accomplished more and I would have felt more at peace internally. And I think, a lot of people want to succeed at something. They want to become something. They want to make more money or build something unique or interesting, but they lack the belief. And the belief comes through repetition and learning how to really control your thoughts and your emotions, and not let your thoughts and emotions control you and hold you back. And so that's something that I'm really grateful that I've learned how to develop.
Yeah. I know when you were younger, your father wouldn't celebrate your birthdays because he didn't want you to feel like you were too young or too old to start something. But do you feel like that was him believing in you?
Absolutely. I mean, he instilled a lot of belief. I mean, he had his own challenges and issues that I struggle with in certain ways, but he instilled a certain mindset of belief in so many different ways. And he also just encouraged and supported. When I go back to the Kobe Bryant interview, like his dad said, "I'm going to love you no matter what." And when he didn't score a point, like in a whole summer of playing basketball, it gave him the confidence and the courage to go back the next summer and, become better, because it didn't matter. His dad wasn't like, "You suck, you should never do this." His dad was like, "I'm going to love you no matter what." And I think when we can have that, and a lot of us don't have that support from family members or friends. And that's why the most important support is having from yourself. We have the conversation with ourselves the most than anyone else in the world. And so if we're saying these negative things over and over, it's going to be hard for us to have that self-belief. And that's why I just think self-doubt is the killer of dreams, but we've got to learn how to overcome it.
Yeah, I promote heavily on this podcast becoming your biggest hype man or your biggest hype woman, because you got to believe in yourself before the world does. The Kobe Bryant, just one great example, but how are you preparing for such high level conversations? I think with that specific interview, I think way back when it first came out, you had talked about maybe getting a heads up a couple hours. It was an early morning interview, I think. And it was like, I don't know if it had happened last minute, but
it happened like the night before, like 5:00 at night. The night before, I got the call that it was confirmed for the next morning at like 8 a.m. or whatever.
How do you step into these incredible high level moments of I can't even imagine what it has to be like for him and all the amazing people.
This is the funny thing. I didn't have time to prepare that night because I had already committed to going to my friend Lindsey Sterling had a concert at like the Hollywood Bowl or the Greek Theater. And I went to that and I was like, okay, I'll just go for the first hour because I already committed I'd be there. And she got me tickets. And she didn't go on until like 11. Like there was another performer with her like before. And so I was sitting there waiting like, man, I want to be here for her, but I got to get back and like sleep and prepare for Kobe. And I didn't get back to like 12:30 or something. I remember, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to trust the universe on this. Tiffany, my filmer, editor, producer at the time.
Yeah, Tiff Tyler.
Shout out Tiff Tyler.
Yeah.
I go, Tiff. I go, meet me at my place. We're going to pack up and leave at whatever, like 5:15 or 5 a.m. or something. And I go, come prepared to tell me everything I need to know about Kobe. Like, luckily I'd like known about him or whatever from just decades of seeing his greatness. But I was like, come prepared with everything I need to know. and we listened to like 3 episodes of his podcast on the way to Orange County, and she was giving me like fact after fact. And then we got there, I don't know, an hour and a half early. So I was setting up and preparing. And I think something like that, I also have just been trained to be in high pressure moments from sports for so long and to stay ready. It's like just constantly in training mode makes you ready for when moments like that happen in a big game or whatever it might be, the last second type of thing. So I've just always been practicing staying ready my entire life. And I think had that happened 3 or 4 years earlier, maybe I wouldn't have been able to pull it off without as much prep time.
Wow.
But since I'd had so many reps at that time, I don't know how many episodes I'd done at that time, 600 or 700 at that time. I'd had a lot of reps where I can show up 30 minutes. If The Rock called and said, Lewis, you got 1 hour until I got to go, I would be frantically okay, what do I need? Let's get there, ready to set up. And then I would sit down and I would ground myself for 2 minutes. And I would get out of my head of needing to look good and say, how can I show up and serve this human being in front of me? And that's a lot of my process now when I go on stage. I used to get really scared still after years of training and becoming more confident. I would still be like nervous the day before a big speech or nervous a couple hours before, like whatever it would take. Early in my career, I used to be nervous 2 weeks before. Then it was a day before. Then it was like hours before. And now I don't get nervous. And I get excited. I'm in the moment, I get prepared, but I'm not nervous anymore because a couple years ago, a coach of mine gave me a great gift. I remember thinking I was giving a talk for $75,000 at this event. And I remember thinking, I've been doing this for 10 years and I do this in front of thousands of people and I'm getting asked to speak all the time. Why am I still nervous? So I literally called my coach like a couple hours before I was backstage. I said, I don't know why. Can you just help me and ground me? Because I'm still feeling like insecure or nervous or whatever. I'm not sure. And he goes, because you're focused on yourself. You're not focused on the audience. And you're thinking about what you're going to say in the first line, if you're going to stutter or stumble, if you're going to forget that joke, if you're going to forget a point here. You need to scrap all that and know that you are going to mess up. You're going to make some mistake. It's not going to be 100% perfect. And you need to accept yourself that you're not this you're not the greatest speaker of all time. That's not what you do best. But what you do best is serve people. So focus on service of the audience. And instead of thinking about what you're going to do and what could go wrong, say to yourself, things are not going to be perfect and that's okay. But what I'm going to do is put all my attention on whoever's looking at me. I'm going to put my eyes and lock in with them and speak to that one individual. I'm not going to think about the 10,000. I'm going to think about the one. And what do they need to hear in that moment? Then I'm going to move my attention to the next person. And by focusing on one person in a room of 10,000, you're speaking to the entire room. As opposed to thinking, I got to reach the entire room and how do I look and how's my presentation? Am I saying it funny? And that has been a great gift that this coach gave me. His name's Chris Lee, where he was just like, you gotta think about service of other people and stop thinking about yourself. And I think a lot of us, the reason why we doubt ourselves, because we're thinking about how we look. We're thinking about what people will say about us. We're thinking about how embarrassing it will be when we fail. We're thinking about the pressure and the weight of when we succeed and the responsibility that comes with success. We're worried about these 3 main fears: fear of failure, fear of success, and fear of judgment. And at the core, the center of all 3 of those fears is I am not enough. And we say, I'm not pretty enough, smart enough, I'm not talented enough, whatever it is, smart enough. And when we ruminate on that feeling of I am not blank enough, we're going to doubt ourselves. So if we want to overcome that, you have to accept where you're at and put your energy off of yourself onto someone else in service to them in some way. And that's been an incredible gift for me, learning that strategy.
Yeah, I remind myself every single day that it's always going to be a work in progress. So even having this podcast locked on my calendar and seeing it, weeks out, then a couple of days out, then today, it's like I'm going to get to this incredible moment. I'm going to have a great conversation. and there's always going to be more work to be done, right? Like today isn't the day we pop champagne and we got Lewis on the pod. I mean, yeah, we're going to celebrate it, and I'm going to make some phone calls after this podcast and let people know that it happened. But after that, it's right back to it. And it's really refreshing to hear, as somebody who has had so much success, still, like, you're about to go on stage and you're feeling that pressure and you're getting worked up and you got to call your coach. Like, that to me is just showing you that nobody here is perfect, that there's always going to be that self-doubt. And I think with time and repetition, like you've figured out, is you're going to be able to quiet that inner voice a lot faster than you did a couple of years ago when you first got started. But when you stay consistent long enough and you put in the reps of doing something over a long period of time, it then becomes habit, becomes second nature, becomes part of your routine, where if The Rock called you right now, you would be ready for that because you've sat down with enough people. You're a curious person. You have great questions. You authentically and genuinely want to pull the wisdom out of these guests. And so, it makes sense to me.
And Kobe, even though I wasn't prepared necessarily, I didn't take time to prepare, and it was like last minute, I still think it was one of my favorite interviews.
Crushed it.
I feel like even if I didn't think, could I have asked anything differently? Maybe. Could I have paused in a different way? Maybe. But the intention of service was there, and he felt that within the first few minutes of meeting me. Like, he felt me present with him, open and vulnerable with him within, the 3 minutes of putting on his mic and sitting down, because he was supposed to only have 20 minutes and he gave me 40.
Wow.
And within those 3 minutes of just meeting him, and Lil Wayne and a 20-person crew production crew being in a corner setting up for the next interview right after in 20 minutes, and everyone coming in the office, and just the whole aura of the moment of this is Kobe, the Oscar winner now and 5-time NBA champion, and this, and me being I just drove down here on 4 hours of sleep and I'm not prepared. But I was prepared because I got there early. I was ready to set up. I was able to ground myself. And I just kept thinking, what is the intention? You don't have to have all the right questions as long as you have the right intention. And that energy was felt in that moment. And the way that I asked questions, he felt it. And it gave him permission to open up and be vulnerable.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful interview. And I mean, there's a handful of other ones that I've had some big impacts in my life, but that was a very, very good interview, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Quick break from today's episode, and then we'll get right back to it. Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Tenzo Tea. Let me tell you right now, I kicked off the new year adding in Tenzo into my daily routines. I have this twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And the greatest thing that I love about this company is that the matcha helps you feel sustained energy throughout the day. There is no immediate high from coffee that coffee has, and then this crash. It truthfully feels like you are just energized. You are on a rocket ship all day long. And I have, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. I mix it personally with almond milk, make a latte, and it gets the blood moving. You can also just have it regularly and just mix it with water. I'm not just saying this, okay? I literally am taking this twice a day, almost every day of the week, and it has been a game changer. Life can be, overwhelming, and there's tough times, and we need to be proactive to keep our heads in the right space by fueling our bodies with energy that serves us to our highest potential, okay? 64% of American adults drink coffee every day, and they pay the price with dehydration, jitters, anxiety, headaches. Nobody wants to deal with any of that, right? Switch out the morning coffee for the matcha. It helps us stay level-headed, focused, and like I said, it avoids the coffee crash. Tenzo matcha contains natural caffeine and L-theanine, and it keeps you energized and focused like a Zen monk. Who doesn't want to be a Zen monk? I want to be a Zen monk. Do you want to be a Zen monk? Zen monk sounds pretty damn cool. Let's be a Zen monk together. The product tastes great. And like I said, you can add it with water, or you can, do the matcha latte, which I'm a big fan of. I take it in the morning before working. I've done it before workouts. I mean, it's literally a game changer depending on how you would like to use it. Tenzo keeps you alert and focused for longer than you, so you can be, more productive within your day. There's 36 milligrams of caffeine per half teaspoon, naturally occurring L-theanine, and switches your brainwaves to a focused, meditative state. Matcha has the highest amount of antioxidants per gram of all the superfoods, okay? You need to head over to tenzotea.co and use my promo code TheBeardedMan, all one word. That'll get you 25% off your entire order. Once again, that's tenzotea.co. Using promo code TheBeardedMan, that'll get you 25% off every order. And I'm telling you right now, you're not going to regret it. I'm going to make a matcha right after I get off this episode. So hopefully you're going to be joining me. That's it. Check it out. Have a great day. Get back to the episode. Let's get it. But as much as a creator as you also are a leader in the sense of you're the CEO of Greatness Media. You guys put out a ton of content. You have courses. You have the Summit of Greatness in Ohio. I mean, there's just like all these layers of your business. So it's one thing to create, but it's
you haven't
also
been to this. You haven't been to the summit yet, have you?
I haven't, but I'm gonna be.
Oh man, you got to get there
next year. Next year,
I
will be there.
Ticket. Yes,
I'm coming in hot. So just letting you know,
you're gonna be like, where have I been the last 5 years? Because I'm telling you, it's my favorite weekend of the year, and everyone. I'm not just saying this because we created it, but everyone talks about it all year round. So you got to come this time.
I will be there this year. Or 20, excuse me, it's going to be next fall. So I will 100% be there. What have you learned about being a leader?
It's freaking hard.
You have a team. You have a team of people that are, I'm chatting with Sarah getting this locked in. You have other people probably.
Yes.
Lewis, do we have approval on this? How do we do this? Like you got to compartmentalize that. I would imagine.
Leadership is hard. Leadership is really. I don't want to say. I want to be careful with the words I use. It can be challenging, and if you're not comfortable in it, then it can feel really hard. At this point, it's becoming a lot easier, but there's always new levels to leadership. I've only been able to navigate that which I've experienced. And then there's a new level. Okay, we're hiring more people. I've never managed this many more people. So I've got a new level of leadership that I need to step into to get into an uncomfortable space on how to lead differently. There's always going to be different levels to unlock. So even though I've done well in one setting doesn't mean it's going to translate into the next setting. I've got to learn to be uncomfortable and overcome the challenge that I face. But leadership was not something that I ever wanted. It's not something I ever wanted to get into. I never wanted to be the leader. I just wanted to be the playmaker. That's what I was in sports. I was like, I wasn't the rah-rah guy. I didn't speak much on a team. I waited for instructions. I waited for someone else to throw me the ball, and then I went and made the plays. I made the big plays when the moments mattered, and that's the guy that I became. I was like, give me the ball when it's time to score, when we need to get a point, when you want to make a move, throw me the ball. I'm always open. I'm always open with 6 guys on me. I will catch the ball. But I never wanted to be the leader of the team. And I was the captain of every team I was on. And I always felt like awkward being the captain because I wasn't this like natural born leader. I wasn't like the talkative. I felt very insecure communicating with people, even especially in small groups. So it's just kind of like, okay, just throw me the ball and we'll figure it out. The leadership became a necessity to me when my father got in his accident. My father got into this car accident when I was 21. And everything changed in my life because I no longer had this mental, emotional, physical, financial support anymore. And I was a senior in college. I went off to play arena football, chased that dream, got injured. And so I was supposed to come back when I was done with the dream of playing professional sports. I was supposed to come back and work with my father and kind of like have him show me the ropes of his business and probably take it over one day. That was never my dream, but that was my dad's dream. At the time, he pretty much lost everything. He had a buyout clause if someone got sick or something happened in his business partnership. So he wasn't able to emotionally or mentally or physically work anymore anyways. So he didn't have the ability to support me mentally, emotionally, physically, or financially. Essentially, I and my siblings had to support him. We had to teach him how to walk again, how to talk again. He was in a pretty bad coma for a number of months. We didn't know if he was going to live or die. And it's been a long journey of recovery where he's still alive, but he's not the person he was, and he doesn't have the capacity or the mental ability or emotional ability to articulate in certain ways or to work. He doesn't have that ability anymore. And he's not able to emotionally be there as a father or a friend. So it's been a sad journey for me, but one I've had to learn how to accept and I'm at peace with. But at that time of kind of those next couple of years after coming back from playing professional football, living on my sister's couch, there was no one bailing me out. There was my sister bailed me out for a year and a half, let me live for free and give me food. But then eventually she was like, okay, you can't do this anymore. You got to go get a job. And so at that point, I had nowhere to go. I had to rely on becoming a leader myself, to lead myself, to figuring out how do I get a job? How do I cope? How do I navigate this? How do I make money? How do I manage my taxes? Like all these different things that I didn't know how to do. And leadership was forced upon me. It wasn't something that I naturally stepped into. It was something that it was a necessity. And I'm grateful for it happening. And I don't think I would be here if my dad didn't go through that accident. I don't think that I would care about humanity as much. I don't think I'd care about my mission as much if my dad was still, emotionally and spiritually the way he was before. I think I would have relied on other people. I would have relied on him. I would have kind of had a backup plan. And so in some ways, it was the biggest challenge and tragedy and adversity and obstacle I've ever faced, is essentially emotionally losing my father. But if I look back at it, I also know that the blessings and the gratitude and the man I've become would not be who I am without that experience happening. So I just try to appreciate, the good moments that I've had with him and continue to say, how can I use this challenge and this obstacle to be of service in the highest level and take it for what it is.
Yeah, your perspective is phenomenal. It's clearly the product of years of, so many great conversations with interviews that you're learning from people. Obviously, there's a lot of deep work within that, a lot of stillness and probably having internal work and therapy. And the perspective is, it's really, it's been so much hard work for you, as I can imagine. So I just want to say it's incredible.
Thanks, man.
And it's really beautiful, and that you're in a place where you share with this with your world and your mission of impacting people. That true north is so important. And I would imagine it's, I see you today and from afar, and I'm watching you just do these things at the highest level, but you still stay so true to really wanting to impact people. And when I was watching you visually on a lot of these podcasts, on Rich Roll, on Jay Shetty, on Tom Bigelow, like you are just so present and it's so authentic and it's so genuine. You're not there just reciting these fabricated answers that you think ahead of time or, that's you prepared in advance for. Like you're really authentically just living your most authentic life. And that is that is the entire point and message that I'm trying to share through this podcast is, there are people like you out there living that life. Anyone else can do it. Follow the interest, follow the ideas, believe in yourself first. It's really some powerful stuff, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. When I think of you as well, like you're very balanced, right? I think you've done a good job of like enjoying your life and like working hard, but also traveling. And, I got to meet Martha when you guys were on the walk, like you're just navigate, man. You're good. How have you created boundaries in your life that allow you to have that balance so that you're not putting too much effort in one bucket and lacking in another?
Well, I think there have been times in my life where I didn't have boundaries and I lacked in certain areas. And I think I go back to the kind of the beginning of the conversation where I feel like, is there something where it feels like there's a breakdown? If so, that's when I start to listen. Is my health, am I gaining like a bunch of weight? Okay. Like there's a breakdown here. So I need to start paying attention to it. I feel like I'm neglecting my friendships and I'm only spending time, in previous relationships, maybe with the partner I was with, and I was never going and seeing friends. I'm like, it's kind of, there's a feeling and I'm like, okay, I need to listen to this feeling. Or, I'm traveling too much that my team isn't getting enough energy from me. They're not getting enough touch points. And so I need to spend more time with my team. It's kind of just being in tune and listening as frequently as possible to what's off, what's working and what's off. This morning I woke up with my girlfriend Martha, and we did a little 15-minute meditation together. And it just feels good to visualize. First one, create peace within your heart and be peace, because I think it's really hard to make decisions under stress and under a cluttered mind. It's hard to make clear decisions under a cluttered mind. And so I want to create peace. I do that through working out, through
Mm.
meditation, through silence and listening. And from that place, I think about, okay, I really am led by my schedule as well. Like my schedule dictates the balance. If it's not scheduled, then I could get off track.
Mm.
So I put in time, throughout the week of when I do my interviews. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I batch all my content, my interviews. Monday and Friday is for team. It's where I spend my time on team calls, team meetings. Monday and Friday, check-ins, setting the goals and reflecting on the week. And then I schedule in on my calendar when I work out every day. I schedule it in. I schedule in travel. I schedule in playtime. Like for me, if I don't have the schedule clear, then I'm just going to fall into my urges as opposed to
Mm.
what I know is going to keep me balanced.
Mm. Yeah, that is what I would like to call being dialed in, where you're literally, your calendar is just exactly, you're mapping it out and you're putting it down so that when the time comes, you have to do the podcast, you have to go work
Yeah,
out, you have to have the team huddle, because then it's holding you accountable to actually following through with the things that are important to you.
exactly. And I think, and I don't have to have my schedule like filled all the time to feel like I'm productive also.
Mm.
I want to have it filled with downtime and playtime also, where it's just nothing. I do whatever I want to do in these hours. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to always be the scheduled back to back to back meetings or content or whatever. A friend of mine called this like strategic messing around. He's like, when you
Mm.
just have time blocked off for strategic messing around, maybe I'm just gonna throw a football in the air and just talk to a friend or go for a walk or whatever. It's just that in between time is where the magic happens sometimes.
Yes.
I think Yo-Yo Ma said like harmony is in between the notes.
Mm.
It's like when it's when you're not doing stuff is when the stuff happens sometimes. And so we've got to create that space and not just be packed up like every hour on the hour with production.
Yeah. Yeah. The shower thought that you're on a
Yes.
run, something pops in your mind, you're at a grocery store, something triggers, and you're like, that's the idea, write it down.
Yeah.
It's those moments that you don't anticipate that it comes, and then you have to, take note of it. But it's never going to happen if you're staying too busy and you're like, I need to think of the next concept
Yeah,
right
man.
now. Like the book ideas, the speaking concepts, like that's all going to come from
In between, man.
in
You
between.
gotta,
Yeah. The in between. Masculinity, we had briefly touched on earlier, and you've talked about through that book, like you've worn different masks at different parts of your life. I'm curious, is there like a certain, for the right way, is there a certain mask you're wearing in your life right now?
Is there one I'm wearing right now? I'm trying to think. I probably have to ask my girlfriend Martha if I am.
And it doesn't have to be when I say mask, I don't think it's a bad thing too. It can be for the right things too, I think, as
Yeah.
well.
I think I'm really into, I don't know. I'm just now getting back into the athlete mode. I feel like for a couple months I had like a surgery on my I had some implants for my missing teeth that I have. I had
Mm.
a knee sprain. So I kind of like gained like 10 or 12 pounds or something. And I felt like it was just like, again, my body was screaming at me, like, you're not in balance here. You need to get back
Mm.
into it. So I've put back in like this athlete mentality mask of kind of
Mm.
like everyday training, eating clean, like this type of identity, which is really an identity we put on that allows me to then step into that and be that identity. And I've been doing that for the last week and a half now, but it it's really healthy because it's getting me back in shape. It's helping me like take on that kind of athlete training mentality.
Mm.
Um, so that'd be one. I don't think. Yeah, I was thinking, am I doing that? I'm really diving into my business in a deeper way, trying to strategically look to acquire things and build out other programs and projects for the future. But that's not the material mask, because the material mask is really focused on like more needing to look good with your material objects and wealth and
Yeah.
things like that. And I don't, I'm not a showy guy, you know, I'm just kind of like, just live my life. So
Yeah. You don't need to. You just execute. You don't need to look, you don't need the car that the certain brand to wear. You're confident in your own skin. And I think that's all
yeah,
that
and I
matters.
like having nice things, but it's just not. I don't need them. You know, I'm happy
Yeah.
with whatever, a $20 T-shirt too. So
And that's all that matters. This is a selfish question. If you were sitting across from, by the time this comes out, I'll be 28 years young. What's the one thing you'd want to tell yourself looking back?
28,
Yeah.
man, shoot, 28 is when everything took off, but also went downhill. Like financially and success wise, things took off, but then emotionally and the inner world started to like. I think it heightened the hurt inside of me, the
Mm,
accomplishments that I was achieving, the money I was making, heightened the insecurity and the hurt within me that I had yet learned how to heal.
mm,
So at 28, if I could go back, I would, man, I would learn how to heal, because if I would have learned how to heal at 28, I would have been extremely dangerous in what I would have been able to create in the world, impact wise. How I've been able to build things. I would have been, I feel like what I've done now would be 1% what I could have done had I learned how to heal in a healthy, authentic way at 28.
wow.
So if it were me, and I could go back to 28, my ego was so in control. My
Mm,
ego did not want to do certain things. And I thought I had things figured out. Because I was accomplishing so much on the outside, I thought like, oh, I'm good. I figured this stuff out. This is what I was missing. Now I've got it. I know the answers. And I was wrong. I was completely wrong. And I was humbled in many ways. So if I was 28, I would hire a therapist and meet with the therapist once every 2 weeks at a minimum for a year, and go through a year of discovering, is there anything I need to heal? If not, how can I continue to heal on the journey of growth? Because when you start to grow at a rapid pace, when you start to accomplish more, when you start to earn more, there's almost like this, this term like post traumatic stress. There's almost like
mhm,
this post traumatic growth. It's it's like you've never had this before. You've just broken through something that you've always wanted to break through, and now you've done it.
mm,
There's this euphoria feeling, but also kind of like this post traumatic growth stress, PTGS, I guess. I don't know, where you don't know how to you've never navigated this before, and now there's new obstacles, and people want things, and people jealous and insecure, like all these things come about, and you're like, I just worked so hard to get here, and now I have to deal with all this other stuff,
mm.
and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I dealt with it based on a hurt way of dealing with things, not a healed way of dealing with things. And that would be the advice I would give my 28-year-old self is go to therapy every 2 weeks, and just let go of anything that's come your way in the previous 2 weeks. Like whatever, I had a challenge with a friend, my girlfriend, a colleague, whatever, just like talk about it and let it go and don't hold on to it. That would do you wonders.
Yeah, that's refreshing to hear. And I think the one thing that's so obvious to me about that is, like you're saying, when success comes, all these other things come. So it's getting really strong with who you are, and going more internal before the external starts to hit you.
Yeah, man.
And then hopefully it allows you to step up to the occasion when things start to really roll.
Absolutely.
Um, what is your definition of greatness? And it changes with seasons, it changes with time. But
Yep.
as of right now, in this moment in time, what's your definition of greatness?
Man, right now it's probably, I probably have added something to it now. It's discovering your unique talents and gifts, and discovering your dreams and being in pursuit of them. In that pursuit, being of service to the maximum number of people along the way, and cultivating inner peace during that
Mm,
journey.
mm. You are living your greatness right now. I can tell you that right now. So you're definitely leading by example of somebody that's doing it.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, just getting started. Every new chapter has new opportunities for growth. So
Yeah. It's beautiful. We're gonna get to the final 5. These are 1-sentence answers, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
First one: how can people learn to give themselves permission to follow their interests and ideas?
How can they learn to give themselves permission?
Yes, because I think a lot of times people are looking for people to say, "Yeah, you should start the project. Yeah, you should go for that job. Yes, you should ask that person out on a date."
I mean, the only way I can think about it is look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, if you don't take on this thing or ask this person out or try this project, if you don't do this and a year passes and you look yourself in the mirror, will you be happy that you didn't do it?
Mm.
And I think just ask yourself that and look yourself in the eyes in the mirror and ask yourself that. And if you're not going to be happy, then you need to do it now.
So good. Second question: if you could go back and tell yourself one piece of advice at any point in your life, what would it be and when? It's a little similar to the 28, but is there a certain situation in your life that you think back on?
Yeah, I would say you are loved and you are enough.
Mm. Any certain time frame or just?
I mean, every day of my life, probably, because I never
Amen.
felt like I was loved or I was enough.
Yeah, it's powerful. Question number 3: what's an area of your life you need to put more effort into?
It's always health. I think emotional, mental, and physical health are the foundation for how we flourish.
Yeah.
And if we are a seed that is being planted and we're looking to build a strong foundation so we can have, deeper roots and stronger trunk, and then, greener leaves and more fruit, that starts with the foundation of our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And I think there's always ways to optimize, tweak, and enhance those, even if you're in great shape.
Yeah.
We could probably be sleeping better. We could be thinking better. We could be healing better. We could be eating better. We can moving and stretching our bodies better. So it's the constant evolution of optimizing health.
Yeah. So important. So important. Fourth question for you: what's the first step anyone can take to reaching their inner greatness?
It's hard to know that a lot of things are possible if you've never created them or have done these things. It's hard to just, the first step to say, like, believing that anything's possible, because it's hard to believe when you don't believe in yourself and you've never accomplished much. But I think that is part of the first step, is if you don't learn to believe, you're never going to accomplish. If you always doubt yourself, you're never going to accomplish anything. So it's learning to overcome the fears that hold you back right now. Those initial fears. I talk about, if you want to become fearless, you've got to create a fear list and start going all in on those fears until the fears disappear. So that is the first step to reaching, giant heights, because if you carry these insecurities and fears with you as you go, they'll always be there. But if you start writing down on a fear list what you're most afraid of, the internal fears, the insecurities, the doubt, the shame, all those things, if you make a list of those and then you say, okay, what is at the top of my list? For me, it was many things. I was a teenager talking to girls. It was salsa dancing. It was playing guitar and singing in front of people. It was public speaking. It was, writing a book. It was like this, the fears never go away. It's like always going to be stuff with you that you've got to like learn how to tackle. Every time I was able to go all in on one of those fears and then check it off my list as not something I'm afraid of anymore, it elevated me to believing something greater was possible. It gave me a different level of self-belief, like, oh, okay, if I could overcome one of my biggest fears and insecurities, then why can't I go make $1 million? Why can't I go make $1 million? Maybe I can make $1 million. Maybe I can make 100,000. Maybe I can make 10 million. Maybe I can, be in the relationship of my dreams. Maybe I could, get out of this toxic relationship because now I believe in myself more because of what I was willing to act on to overcome.
Yeah.
And I think if we carry those fears and insecurities with us, the longer we carry them with us, the longer we are out of integrity with our dreams, because we're allowing something to hold us back as opposed to taking it on head on. So that would be, in a long answer, the first step.
Create the fear list. Start checking things off as you go.
Yes.
Last question for you. Somebody's made it through the last 61 minutes of this podcast. What is one challenge you have for the listeners today as they wrap up listening to this episode?
I would ask people to think about their biggest goals and their biggest dreams, and to think about their biggest fear and insecurity. So one big goal and big dream, and one big fear and insecurity. Think about those two things. And I would create a challenge. That goal or that dream that you've had, you've probably been thinking about for more than a week or a month. You've probably been thinking about it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and something's been holding you back from actually getting started. I'm not talking about accomplishing it at the highest level, but actually like getting the thing started, whether it was writing a book, creating a YouTube channel, whatever it might be, that thing that you wanted to do, starting an art project, something, clothing line. I would challenge you in the next 30 days, if you had 30 days left to live, if you didn't put this out there, and you would die if you didn't get started with it. Could you get started with this project thing idea in the next 30 days? Could you make it happen? Could you get your first speaking gig? Could you do that thing in 30 days or less if you knew you were going to die? And I go kind of extreme with this, but I think we need to think in extreme terms. Otherwise, 5, 10, 20, 30 years goes by and we never do the thing we want to do, and we die without doing the thing that was inside of us.
Yeah.
So I would challenge you to get started and launch this thing in the next 30 days. And I would challenge you to accomplish it in 30 days. Don't just get it started, but try to accomplish it. And I would also challenge you to go all in on your fear, your biggest fear. So create your fear list, and whatever is at the top of the list, act on that fear every single day for 30 days. For example, my fear when I was a teenager was talking to girls. I was terrified. I just felt humiliated and insecure every time I'd say hi to a girl because I'd just get laughed at. So one summer I said, I'm sick and tired of feeling this fear. And every time I see a cute girl, I'm like 16 years old. Every time I see a cute girl, which is pretty much like every girl I see, I'm going to walk right up to them and say hello. I don't need to do anything else. I'm just going to say hello. And I did this multiple times a day in one summer. And eventually I'm going from hello to having longer conversations, to getting phone numbers, to going out with girls, going to the movies or whatever I was doing back then with girls, and just learning how to overcome the fear. And it gave me such a level of confidence to go after the goals and the dreams that I had.
Yeah.
So create one goal and write down and assess one fear and go all in on both of them for the next 30 days.
I love both of those, because essentially what that's doing is just creating pressure instead of keep pushing it off to a week, 2 months. It's creating action now. Within the 30 days, write down the fear list. You're going to visually see it. And I think that's going to help people take action.
That's it.
Louis, this it's just speechless, man. So much gratitude for you. I told you this, and I wrote about it in the caption after I ran into you in Marina Del Rey on that Sunday, and couldn't have been in such a more iconic moment. But the one quote that I think of when I see you and I think of Lewis Howes, to me personally, is Steve Jobs. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And there have been so many incredible moments, people, opportunities, highs, lows along the way these last 5 years to get me to where I am today. But when I really do connect it all back, it's this moment. I'm in my senior year of college. I don't know what I want to do. I was supposed to graduate, get a corporate job, climb the ladder. That was going to be my happiness. And I realized that wasn't it. I started listening to your podcast. I started listening to Gary Vee. There were 3 people when I started my first podcast, Purpose in the Youth, that I had on my to-do list of getting on the podcast. It was Chris Praff, or Drama of Short Story Long. He felt like my accountability partner. He was putting out a podcast per week and started his show 2 months after before me. There was Gary Vee, who was serving as my mental coach. I was listening to his content every single day, put out the content, screw the numbers, all his mindset. And then there was you, the true inspiration of, I saw you interviewing the highest level people and I got inspired from it and I learned from it. But I said, you know what? I want to do what Lewis is doing, but I want to do it for the people that are around me that are in the early parts of the journey. I want to create the thing that I see is lacking in the space, which was a younger skewing podcast focused on passionate people. And it has been an incredible ride. And I am just unbelievably grateful for you, the energy you put out there to the world, the leader you are in the space, and just everything that you stand for. And I will be rooting for you from afar for as long as I can. And just sincerely, I appreciate people's time and having this time with you today. It could not be a better way to end my year. This has been, without a doubt, the greatest year of my life. My birthday's next Saturday.
Nice.
Just a lot of great things going into 2022. And this was the momentum. The momentum has been going all year, but this was the Houston. We have a liftoff. The rocket is going through the sky.
That's good,
so
man.
Sincerely, thank you.
I appreciate it, man. I'm curious, what has been the 3 biggest lessons you've learned within the podcast itself over 5 years of doing the podcast?
Consistency, needing to stay consistent. Doesn't matter. I mean, you want to see numbers grow, but as long as I'm consistent, I'm going to get better with the craft. Be willing to throw yourself out there on a public platform. You're going to have people listening. You're going to be opening up on your truths. As well as, when I say throw yourself out there, it's be willing to reach out to guests that you have no connection to, send cold emails, slide through DMs. And thirdly, we talked about a lot today, but becoming your biggest hype man. Like last night, even before I slowed down. I was like, put the phone on do not disturb. Like, let's just reground myself into this moment of where I was, how I was feeling when I discovered Lewis's podcast, the thoughts and emotions of, I'm about to graduate college. I'm 6 figures in debt. I don't know what I'm doing in my life. And just getting recentered on that feeling and that emotion and thinking about how much has evolved to where I am today. And yes, I'm grateful for the people that have supported me along the way and that have given me opportunities. But at its core, and you've touched on it a lot today, is I had to be my biggest hype man. I did not have any creative experience previously. I wasn't a podcaster. I had no audio experience. I didn't know how to make video content. I know how to put subtitles on videos. I had to learn that along the way. And if I wasn't rooting myself on from day one, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Love that, man.
Yeah. So it's been so many other little nuggets along the way, but
that's great, man. Well, I got to acknowledge you, man, because it's been fun to watch your journey. You know, I've been watching for 5 years since you first reached out, and to see your consistency. Most people give up after a year or two when they're not getting certain results or whatever, but you just kept showing up, and you show up not only for your show and for your community, but you show up for your health and your wellness and your career, and you just keep being consistent. And I think consistency goes a long way for people, and having consistency with a positive energy makes people want to be around you. So if that's another lesson that people can take away from, is like consistency shows you're credible. It shows you're not just like in and out. It shows you're credible, and it builds credibility. And positive energy is what everyone wants to be around. No one wants to be around someone talented who's negative. People would rather be around positive energy than someone who's semi-talented than someone who's extremely talented and a jerk. So I'm proud of you for constantly showing up for yourself, man. And it's shown the results. If you look 5 years ago, you see the financial gain, the career gain, the friendship gain, the physical gain that you've developed by being there for yourself and being a service to other people in your community.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Just that acknowledgement alone is priceless. And I will probably clip that and put that as a daily ringtone to remind myself I'm headed down the right path, hearing your voice. But, you talk about in a lot of podcasts and in your own content, the importance of vision. And so the vision has been still the same. It's helping people. And I know that that's going to be a forever work in progress, whether I have 1 million downloads, 10 million, 100 million. It's always going to be the true north. So there's always going to be more work that needs to get done. Love it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this podcast today, please screenshot this episode, whatever platform you're listening in on, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. post this podcast to your IG. Let's get the internet rocking and rolling on what you just heard today. Post it to your IG story. Tag Lewis. He's at Lewis Howes. Tag me at Bobbbaaaay. That's BO, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y. Share out the podcast in your IG story. What was the takeaway? What was the lesson? How did this specific episode change your perspective? There was a lot of nuggets, a lot of good gems. I'd be very curious to know what was the specific takeaway. In the description below, I will have Lewis's website, lewishowes.com. You can find everything that he's involved with there, as well as I will also have the School of Greatness podcast linked up. 99.99% of you that are listening to this episode right now know who he is. You've heard me talk about him an unbelievable amount on this podcast. But if you are the 0.01%, please do yourself a favor and go listen to his podcast today. Is there anywhere else I should be plugging people up?
Nah, man. Just just say hi if you see me, and if not, then keep listening to your show, man. You're doing great.
Thank you, Lewis. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate your time, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Bearded Man Podcast. See ya.